Oh, it just died. You killed it. So according to me, we got about 5 minutes on YouTube there, but it seems to have died. Wow, hopefully nobody was watching that for 5 full minutes.
Yeah, I got one person is watching us. That's possibly me.
Or me. Could be me. I'm in there too.
Okay, can I pin that message? No. This is very irritating. Let's see if there's anything else. No, tried that. Okay, right. So I think
so this now says we're live. Yeah.
I think we may just go ahead and
YouTube.
Go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Yeah. YouTube thinks we're live. We're live.
We're live.
I believe YouTube. I think we've perhaps shared all our viewers, but it is technically live. All right, go again.
Oh.
Go for another intro for old time's sake.
Yeah.
All right. I did mine already. You know it's your turn.
Okay, yes. Right. All right. Hi. You are watching I've Never Read Discworld, a broadcast co-hosted by Andy Luke and my dear friend PJ Hart. I had not 3 years ago never read Discworld until my brother Gavin dumped 20 books on my doorstep. Well, actually, it was inside my doorstep. And I reached out to find PJ to help guide me through the books. Last month, we have been going through them chronologically, and we reached book 28, The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. And because it's Christmas, we thought Discworld, Hog's Watch, might be some link there. We looked at the Hogfather last Christmas, and we thought this Christmas we'd look at Sky TV's adaptation of the very same novel.
Indeed. So last year, long-time viewers might remember Andy and I got together in person for our first ever in-person recording, or well, second ever in-person recording, I guess, after the time we went to the show. But anyway, I made eggnog, we sat around and we had a nice chat. But this year we're going to step it up a notch and we're going to bring some audio visuals into the mix. And it's an interesting one for me. I'm just going to dive right in, Andy, if that's okay. This is there aren't that many visual adaptations of Discworld books, right? And I had read most of the books, or at least a lot of the books, before they even started making them. But this one's kind of an odd situation where I saw this movie like a good few times. Like I'd watched it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times at least, before I ever read the book of Hogfather. I don't know if I mentioned that at the time because I wanted to kind of keep it spoiler free and just talk about the book. But yes, that's the case. I didn't watch it exactly when it came out. I came to it a few years later, but I absolutely loved it. and have not rewatched it every Christmas, but I come back to it every now and again. So I'm excited to see what Andy makes of it.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time yesterday, 29th of December, 2025, and rewatched it today. I've also managed to find a few bonus extras from the DVD, but might also be on the YouTubes. Can we talk about those briefly first?
Absolutely. I mean, usually in this situation, Andy would give you like the publication details and the year and all that kind of stuff. As the resident kind of TV head, I guess I don't mind doing that instead, if you like. So Hogfather was produced by The Mob & Co. for Sky One. Production began in 2025, and the show aired over 2 nights on Christmas 2006. It was written and directed by Vadim Jean, with writing input. Terry is credited as mucked about by Terry Pratchett on the screenplay. So I think we can comfortably say written by Vadim Jean and Terry Pratchett, directed by Vadim Jean. The Sky One The Mob & Co. production for Sky One. It's not as good. You're better at the books. The book, publication details roll off the tongue a bit easier, I think. But all that just to say that this is coming on 20 years old. 19 was probably 20 years ago, probably when it was produced. 19 years ago, it was broadcast.
Yep. It premiered 27th of November, occurs on Mayfair.
Oh yes, they had a big proper all singing, all dancing. Yeah, of course.
That must have been some show, because it really is a fantastic show.
You wanted to talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff first, before I interrupted you with all the details.
Sky screened it 17th, 18th of December, with a repeat on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. But there was a 12 days of Hogs Watch leading up to it, which I assume was scheduled the 12 days leading up to Christmas Day, which is
one would imagine. I tried to find out a bit of behind the scenes info on the 12 days of Hogwatch. They're not on IMDb. That's about as far as I took it, to be honest. But yeah, I was quite curious about the TX dates on those. I was also quite curious as to whether they got the same actor to wear the death costume, because I thought he was very good in both, and in the whole Hog. There's another behind the scenes documentary that's a full 45 minutes, where you meet the actor who plays Death, who is this nice Dutch fellow who is called Marnix van den Broek. I'm probably butchering that, but he really puts a lot into the physical performance of Death, and I thought the person, whether it's him or not, who was doing it in the little short 12 Days of Hogwatch vignettes, was also nailing it. So I just wanted to try to find that out, but I'll admit that I didn't try that all that hard. Yeah, which of those was your favorite?
I'm not quite sure. They all kind of watched them as one block, and they kind of meshed into one. I mean, there were some scenes that were absolutely Death with a curry and Death with a fried breakfast were I've almost screen capped those, shared them with you. I got really jolly seeing the Unseen University for the first time.
Yeah. Death in the pub I also liked. But yeah, those little scenes at the end where Death goes somewhere for a meal or a drink is just inherently funny, for all the same reasons that it's funny in the book, but more so.
Yeah. It was lovely seeing the interviews with Terry, with Stephen Briggs, who I believe did the storyboards for it. Vadim Jean, I think his name is, who is both the director and the writer.
That's right, yeah.
And I mean, Ian Richardson absolutely kind of nailed it for me as the voice of Death. And then the guy who does the body work for Death, who does the movements, and what's his name? Dutchman.
I just gave it out there, and now I've lost it. Marnix van den Broek.
Marnix van den Broek. Yeah, very, very subtle moves and stuff. Yeah, those were a real extra treat. I mean, before I sat down and watched it, I was going through the cast listings, and yeah, I had some immediate positives and negatives that kind of changed quite a bit by the time I got finished my second viewing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to spend the whole podcast belly aching about the TV industry and how terrible it is in general, but especially now. But I think it is just worth mentioning at the top that, like, the fact that a UK cable network essentially could make this 3-hour-long fantasy comedy with, let's be honest, not a lot of big names in it, like Tony Robinson, David Jason, probably the two biggest names. The lead human character, Susan, was a complete unknown at the time. Michelle Dockery, this was her first major screen role. So the fact that this even exists, yes, it was nearly 20 years ago. It was a different time in the industry, but the fact that it even exists is a small miracle. A Hog's Watch miracle, you could say. And yeah, they just don't. TV shows, movies, TV movies like this just don't get made anymore. Even the streamers, I don't think would, at the height of the streaming bubble, don't think would have attempted this. So it's great to see it. I'm glad it exists.
Yeah, Michelle Dockery was one of the people I was a little worried about because she comes from a certain class in acting. It's a whole Bridgerton. Although I think it was one of the Bridgerton cousins she was in.
Well, she's well known for being in Downton Abbey, so I get why you might. That's where almost everybody will know her from. But this role predates that. This, and I think she comes across really well in the behind the scenes documentaries, where she's super excited to have this as her first major screen role. She doesn't know how to ride a horse. Like, they have to teach her how to ride a horse. She's super up for doing her own stunts and everything. So from what little I've seen of Downton Abbey, she's good in it. And I had seen this. I'd seen this before I ever saw Downton Abbey. So this, I had no preconceptions of Michelle Dockery before I ever saw this. And, was probably quite sweet on her the first time I saw it as well, as a much younger man.
So we have a message from SB75N. We are now on YouTube. So
good to know. Thanks, SB.
Interact with us directly. Come over to youtube.com/@Discworld and we should see your messages. I'm going to cough. PJ's going to say something as filler.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned Ian Richardson as the voice of Death. I guess when I was talking through the cast there, I didn't mention him as a big name, and perhaps I should have. He was, of course, the star of the original House of Cards. We were talking about streamers and what kind of content they would have made and all the rest of it. So, I mean, no Ian Richardson, no House of Cards, no Netflix, big numbers circa 10 years ago. So I would just also like to kind of echo what you already said. I mean, he's perfect in this, And we talked about Christopher Lee as the voice of Death before, but there's a bit of additional vulnerability at times, some extra warmth, just a smidgen of warmth that Death displays, or that is hinted at in the books, that Ian absolutely nails. Oh yes, is that the Christmas brandy going in? I'm on the Baileys, but I don't think it's going to last.
Oh, nice. It wouldn't last for me. This is a bit of a special reserve whiskey.
Oh,
like my whiskey.
Even classier, much classier. So yeah, I mean, for your average British TV viewer circa 2006, I would say there's enough potentially here to get you interested. And I guess that's kind of how it was back then. You didn't need the big international stars for stuff like this, because there was no expectation that this would really travel dramatically beyond the borders of UK viewing. I mean, I think it did eventually, but that wouldn't have been built into like the finance plan or anything like that in the way it is now. So yeah, I think if you've got David Jason, Tony Robinson, Nigel Planer, I guess would have had a bit of a cult following, still does. And then introducing, an exciting new young female actor in Michelle Dockery. I also love Mark Warren. I was so convinced that Mark Warren, who plays Tea Time, was from EastEnders, but I looked it up and he's not. He was never in EastEnders. I don't know why I thought that.
Well, Mark Warren is one of about 7 or 8 actors in this who have been in Doctor Who. In the ill-fated Love and Monsters episode. He's also actually another little bit of trivia. There are, as far as I know, there are 10 actors who have been in both Doctor Who and Star Trek, and this adaptation has 2 or 3 of them.
Oh wow! Is Mark Warren one of them?
I do not believe he is.
Put you on the spot there.
Mark Warren is somebody I was really excited about, and I was I'm really excited about his choices, and I'm still going through like 95% of what he is doing on screen is really bold, is really amazing, but there's that little slither of an American accent. So his performance is like a little sing-song, and the American accent only comes out in the last sort of word or a couple of syllables or whatever, and it's just a little over the line creepy, and it's really been irritating me. But on the second viewing, I'm kind of coming around to it.
Yeah, like you said, it's a very self-conscious choice, and he mentions in the Whole Hog documentary that he was very inspired by Johnny Depp's performance in Wonka. And then we sort of get it. We go that sort of slightly unidentifiable accent. I think is kind of part of that, and the sing-song register that you mentioned. For me, it works better in this than it does in Wonka. And that's not to say that Mark Warren is necessarily a better actor than Johnny Depp, but I think it suits the subject matter here a little bit better. I want to be completely creeped out by Tea Time. I want to be uncomfortable every time that he's on screen, and the voice is a really big part of that.
Yeah. So we are just now, we're on YouTube. I'm going to take a wee step back of our first impressions and talk a little bit about how this episode's going to go. We are going to do our usual thing, give our first impressions and break it down into 5 chunks, as per the original Hogfather, because I couldn't be bothered rewriting synopses because it's Christmas and I'm on a break. But we have a live audience for the first time ever. It's our first ever live stream. So I want you to feel free to jump in with your comments about your first impressions, how you felt about particular parts of the story as they were brought to life, particular actors, lighting choices, and hopefully we can get around to some of your comments and these will be, we'll also produce an edited version of this live stream that can go into the podcast channels, but maybe with a few clips from the film in there under fair use law.
Of course. Awesome. So with that in mind, I don't actually have the document in front of me, which is very, very bad.
Just continuing my first impressions. Yeah, I absolutely love this. I mean, I've got snickety, pernickety criticisms that we'll unpick as we go through, but like nothing, even the bigger ones weren't really important in the scheme of things. This is just beautiful. It looks beautiful. The lighting, the sets, the casting. My God, the music. David A. Hughes score on it. David A. Hughes worked with Vadim Jean on The Color of Magic and a short film. I think it was called Leon the Pig. And also he scored Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah.
Interesting contrast.
Well, is it though? Because I think there's tonally, they're not actually a million miles apart. You know, you've got that kind of adventure / comedy. Yes, I mean it's not a gangster adventure; it's a fantasy adventure. But they both kind of, you know, lightly trade the boards between genre. And I think if you're a composer, that's a bit of a nightmare because you get your brief. You know, you want to write, you know, big epic fantasy. You get the orchestra out and you do that. If you want to write comedy, you're doing little leitmotifs and things like that. So how you kind of combine genre as a composer, I imagine, is a really tricky brief. And the fact that they obviously were happy with what David did and they brought him back for the following adaptation speaks very highly. And also you've got the Christmas theme. You want to sprinkle a bit of holiday magic into the music of this as well. So very, very challenging brief, but well met for sure.
Yeah, and the lighting throughout is just perfect for that. And the set work, it feels like a Christmas movie right the way through.
Yeah, for sure. And we're in that world, I think, that early 2000s where you might have been half expecting this to be in a television aspect ratio, in a 4:3 aspect ratio, rather than a cinematic 16:9 aspect ratio, as sort of 90s, early 2000s TV movies might have been. But I think, as you mentioned, the broadcaster really wanted to treat this as a cinematic event, and they had a premiere in a cinema. And it's shot cinematically, it's lit cinematically, the soundtrack, the composition, all that makes us feel like a film. It doesn't feel like a 2-part TV series. No shade on any 2-part TV series is out there, but this feels like a movie.
Yeah. Let's see.
I can't remember the first time I watched it. It's just when you're talking about first impressions. I'm struggling to think of the first time I watched it. I didn't watch it when it came out. I know that much. I didn't have Sky at the time. I was a broke student living on the Lower Ormo Road. And I knew this was happening. And I think probably like my standards were unrealistically high for it. Like I was a big Discworld fan. I was also quite a precocious undergraduate film student at the time. So all that praise I've just heaped on it in terms of how cinematic it looks and feels, I probably wasn't the opinion I had when I first saw trailers or first saw it on the front cover of Radio Times or whatever. I think a lot of that probably would have been down to the death costume, which, you know, in still imagery doesn't necessarily look great. Or, well, it's not that it doesn't look great. It doesn't look realistic as such, but then it's not meant to. It's, you know, it.
Those little pinpoint blue eyes. I find myself coming to the end of the first part and aware that I wasn't looking directly at them any chance I could get. So that worked.
Yeah. Also, I think, like, as I said, still images don't do it justice. You know, the movement, Max's movements in Richardson's voice, that's what brings the character to life. Yeah. You know, like a flatly lit promo image on the cover of a magazine isn't really going to do that character justice. And then I guess the other thing was I hadn't read this book. So when this came out, they were doing one of the Discworld books I hadn't read. I sort of blew a bit hot and cold on the Death series at the time. So I was just kind of like, I'll get around to it. So when I did, as I say, I don't really remember exactly when that was. Probably in the era of sort of early torrenting, when I just got to admit to doing a load of piracy here on the stream. But like, I've
what he's talking about.
No, but I put a lot of my blood. I put a lot of my blood, sweat, and tears into the UK television industry. It can owe me a DVD or two down the way. But yeah, so I came across it by dubious means, perhaps, and have watched it. Yeah, if not every Christmas, maybe every other Christmas, every few Christmases since. I would say probably from like my mid to late 20s. Till now, definitely when I was back from traveling and stuff like that. And Yeah, as we mentioned, I didn't get around to reading the book then until we did it for the podcast, just probably for all the reasons you mentioned. It hit me the right way. It's like, I feel like satisfied by this version of the story. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually, like, if an adaptation falls flat, but I can see there's enough there, I'll go and read it. But for this, I was like, I totally get Terry's voice in this. There's other Discworld books I haven't read. I'll get back to this when I get back to it, because I feel satisfied by the version I already know, which is this film version. So I think that really, really counts as high praise for what they did with this.
Do you know, I've made no secret on this pod that I'm not the biggest fan of Terry's death, or at least I'm a fan, but not in the way that many other people are. And I think this adaptation broke through for me.
Okay.
Richardson and Marnik, Marnix Vandenbroek created this death that really is quite resonant. That sort of very factual, too earnest comedy character really sold me this time. We keep bringing up the whole hog, the making of documentary, and there's a wonderful moment where Marnik and Michelle are doing the final death Susan scene, and it's just his little nods and that, and they're wishing each other a happy Hogs watch, and they just kind of hug as soon as cut is called, because they're just so sort of touched by the scene. And that's prime Terry, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, there's something quite sweet about seeing Susan and Death hugging, because they would never do in character. Those characters would never hug. They love each other, but they wouldn't express that physically. So yeah, it was really sweet to see the actors give us that moment instead.
We usually try and get right through the synopses as soon as possible. But I have in our notes the cast first. And is there anybody we want to single out when we're talking through the cast first? I see David Jason at the top, and you know what? I'm not a big David Jason fan either. And I was really glad that I didn't see him as David. I mean, he isn't my 100% Albert, but I was really glad it was a much more restrained performance from him. Not quite as severe or austere as Albert should be. I mean, he should be the straight man in this. But yeah, it was just still quite a good performance. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's funny seeing him in behind the scenes where he's clearly
a huge fan.
Yeah, and maybe slightly put out that he's not the lead in this, like a bit put out that he's a supporting character in it, I think. And we all know what happens then when they came back with The Color of Magic, but he's a much better Albert than he is Rincewind for sure. But we'll put a pin in that discussion. Yeah, I get what you mean about the comic relief thing, but ultimately, like, he shares almost all his scenes with a prosthetic mask. So I get why you would maybe overwrite the comedy of Albert, just in case the chemistry of the physical performance and the voiceover performance of that doesn't click for Death in the way that it did. But if you need a human performance to carry those scenes, at least you got David Jason, who is a very, very skilled, very seasoned comedy performer. But they nailed it. The Death's characterization really, really works. It's really funny. So yeah, there ends up being perhaps an abundance of comedy beats in some of those scenes. But I mean, it's Christmas. You can't have too much. You got to overindulge.
Seeing you brought up Rincewind, Nigel Planer would have made a fantastic Rincewind. He's great in this as Sydney. Just the right amount of patheticness and, but not tipping over the edge. Visually quite spectacular. With the whole crouching performance, the pathetic hair.
It's no secret. Ever since he started doing the audiobooks, And the video game voices, I think he possibly even does Rincewind's voice in one of the video games. I could be wrong about that, but he's been heavily involved in the franchise. And like we always said, Sydney is like Rincewind gone wrong, essentially. And I think that's just exactly how he's playing it. Like that's the kind of energy that he's bringing to the role. It's exactly as we saw it. And it's just a joy. It's a joy to watch.
I really like the measured performance given by Peter Guinness as Medium Dave and Stephen Marcus as Banjo.
Yeah, the gang are good. I mean, maybe we should just get into the synopses because we're going to meet these guys pretty early in the story anyway, aren't we? So,
okay, I will lead off with a Hogswatch fave repeat. On the first part of Hogswatch, Downey of the Assassin's Guild has a big job for tea at time, who has scenarios for killing the Fat Man and death. He enlists a band of criminals, a wizard, an expert locksmith, and Ernie the cabbie. Death meets Ernie on the streets, and meanwhile auditors audit. Susan is a governess chasing monsters. The Raven tries to get her attention because something is wrong with Death. He's taken on the role of the Hogfather. Ho, ho, ho.
Excellent. What you guys can't see, but I can see, is the editing that Andy has done or had to do to the synopses. And it's quite interesting just to see like what has been kept and what has been dropped from the page to the screen. And the short answer is certainly at this stage, not much, which is nice to see.
Yeah, Madam Jane has really managed to get so much into this. Clearly quite a fan himself.
Yeah, I vaguely remember, I'm trying to think back to Rob's biography, just in terms of like, the producers from the mob, whose names escape me, and that's bad because I always like to give producers their due when they deserve it. But the team and Vadim, coming out to see Terry and sort of pitching their vision for it and all the rest of it. And I think 90 minutes obviously wouldn't have done this any justice. Like the 2-part Christmas television event, which is kind of a thing of the past now, or certainly becoming it, is perfect for this because you would have the opposite problem. You would have the kind of Netflix problem if you tried to make a whole series out of it. If you tried to do 6 episodes of this, not going to work. You try to do 1 movie, also not going to work. So I think they've got the exact perfect runtime for a book like this in 3 hours, 15 or whatever it is. So you were going to talk about the gang, or do you want to take this in more?
Yeah, I was going to talk. In plot terms, it looks a good bit about the gang, but in terms of how it shows up on screen, it's very much a focus on our Susan. There's real care taken building her world. I love the scene where the party guests come down and find her. Yep, our live stream appears to have shut down unexpectedly.
Are we still live on YouTube? YouTube thinks we are. Let me just refresh that. I don't know if
we are still on the same page or it's opened us up on a new.
I think it's gone. I think we're down. Oh wait, hold on. No, it's there, or something's there anyway. Yeah, all right, carrying on.
Okay.
Yeah, like that
off the refund.
Yeah. Yeah, that sequence with Susan and the bogeyman and the kids, I was a bit surprised thinking back on it, with an analytical mind, that whole scene basically plays out beat for beat as it does in the book. Considering that like the kids don't have a huge role in this, the parents and their guests obviously have almost no role in the whole story, but thematically it's so important, just in terms of about belief, the purpose of belief in the Discworld, and because you don't have the book's narrator to just tell you that. You really need a scene that demonstrates that. Oh, SB has confirmed that we still exist on YouTube. Thanks, SB. existential crisis averted. Yeah, so it was great to see, and it's just a funny sequence. There's opportunity for great visuals in it with the bent poker, some great, you know, off-screen film storytelling with all the audio sound effects of the bogeyman getting beaten up, and all the adult characters and the child's reaction to that. So time well spent, money well spent, I think.
Yeah, the biggest change is the almost complete lack of death of rats and the scaling back of Quoth the Ravens part.
Animatronics in it, expensive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those two characters, if memory serves, were pretty much part of Susan's quest throughout. What we did get a death of rats, that one scene was pretty good, pretty well realized.
Yeah, yeah. And funny that Michelle does the voice as well. The little squeaking. Yeah, I can see that being a bit of a source of frustration for Vadim, I guess, where you have this opportunity to essentially have a Greek chorus for Susan to like, so that they can all like basically explain the plot to each other as they go. But you're like, well, one of them's going to have to be an animatronic bird, and the other one's going to be an animatronic rat. I should go, oh, can't have them in every scene because it costs far too much money. So, yeah, you know, Terry gives, and then the production budget takes away when it comes to the characters.
It was critical nitpicking time. The animatronics of Quoth didn't quite match to the voices as much as I would have liked. Good critical picking. I think it's Neil Pearson is the actor voicing Quoth, who is probably best known as Dave the Lothario and Drop the Dead Donkey. And he's really sort of he's really putting his full worth onto that character.
You're kind of showing, yeah. I mean, best known to you, best known to 50-year-old male nerds as Dave from Drop the Dead Donkey. He's in every single Bridget Jones film.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously done very well for himself. But Drop the Dead Donkey was obviously iconic, and I think he does really well with Quoth. He brings a bit of that sardonic kind of vibe that he did in that show. I honestly can't really. I think he has got quite a big role in Bridget Jones, but I'm not familiar enough to expound on that. I only noticed that from my IMDb. Just trying to maintain some kind of street cred here that I'm not a huge Bridget Jones fan. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, I jumped into this because you wanted to talk about the kind of the gang of thieves and the casting of those guys.
I think I need to bring one bit on that just is stuck in my memory right now. They're kind of assembling in the bar, and they've been waiting about until the wizard and until the locksmith shows up, and he sets a bag down on the table in front of Banjo and says, "Hope you can carry that." And somebody says, "Banjo can carry 2 men." And it's then that Mr. Tea Time addresses the fact that Banjo is there. He didn't hire Banjo. And just that he's been ignoring him or not recognizing his presence for so long, it's just extra fucking creepy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if is that in Terry's original treatment?
Hard to say. Yeah, I don't think so necessarily, but I know not. Because Banjo's the one who gets punched as well, who gets the tooth knocked out. I suspect that it's not. But yeah, just anything like you can do like that with the tension between characters visually within a scene just heightens it so much. And it's such a classic archetypal kind of scene. And you know, Terry plays with those genre tropes really well in book form, and you're kind of curious to see how they're going to pull off the same kind of tropes visually. And yeah, it's handled really well, and that's an extra bit of sauce just on top, I think, to really drive it home. Yeah, great scene.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Peter Guinness. I think, who's medium Dave. Is a really good performance. He must be one of your Doctor Who, Star Trek people, is he? He kind of creeps up in these roles quite often.
Yeah. The pair of them just give such a kind of restrained performance. They're not really sort of sticking their faces to the screen until they need to. Yeah, and he's got such incredible eyebrows as well.
Yeah, he's been doing great. I mean, I know him from Alien 3. You know, he's one of the British sort of character actors who gets eaten by an alien in that movie. But recently, he's been in the Chernobyl miniseries for HBO, and I was trying to think. I saw him in another big streaming series. Oh yeah, the Jack Ryan series on Amazon as well. So yeah, he's a habit of. I mean, he does look like a bit like a Russian bad guy, and he definitely nails those roles too. But he's playing it a bit more understated here, which is, and probably the right choice, I guess, considering how over the top certain elements of this world are. I mean, his performance in Chernobyl as well is quite understated and very kind of down to earth too. So he's certainly got range.
We've got the Unseen University, of course, and it was just really good seeing that for the first time. I've got a note here. It says a few of the older actors that appear throughout the cast are quite theatrically trained and have worked together closely. I've since passed on as well.
Yeah.
The UU is really made manifest in this. It's delicious. It's just so what you imagine. It's this old pompous institution that's kind of corrupt through idiocy. And yeah, you can really see how Ponder is completely contrasted from the rest of them. It's just a bunch of old men with beards. They're probably slightly insane.
Yeah, and not to get ahead, not to talk about any potential recasting that happens in The Color of Magic, but I think the kind of group of wizards we get together in this one certainly suits the story of Hogfather and some of the more silly stuff, like around the bathroom and all that, Bloody Stupid Johnson and everything. I think, yeah, these guys kind of nail it. Like you said, it's an institution that basically survives on laziness and idiocy and backstabbing, and there's a really kind of good chemistry between all these guys and Ponder as well when he gets thrown into the mix too. Ed Coleman, who plays Ponder, he's one of those faces. I can't think of any specific other roles. He recently crept up in The Witcher. Actually, I think I might be the only other person still watching The Witcher. But he did recently crept up in this year's current season of that. But yeah, a bit older and a bit grizzled, a bit more no longer the young, idealistic wizard that he once was, unfortunately. I don't think, totally very different shows. But yeah, Ponder Stibbins has saddled with a lot of exposition in this as well, and he gets through it, and the back and forth with Ridcully works really, really well.
I've two other notes on this part. The first is, it's in talking about Death's world. And actually, I love, just in the way I get there, I love how that is shot, the black and white and greys, just as it's described in the book. And it looks so beautiful on screen. It looks so noir. It's so ethereal. So that's well done. We get a number of close-ups of the hourglass. And the way it's shot, it looks like some kind of foreign creepy moth or something like that. It's really unusual photography in that, and I think it works really well.
Yeah, and the glasses themselves, the hourglasses themselves, are obviously not just store-bought props or whatever. It's good thoughts going into the design of those, and that plays really well with how they're shot. and how they're colored as well.
I mean, you could see that sort of design and photography working with an adaptation of Mort quite well, where I think there's a bit more time spent in Death's place.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a whole movie of it would become too much. But then I guess even in Mort, you wouldn't be there for the whole movie anyway, and it would provide great contrast. Actually, I think the Discworld, in my mind, has always been a very colorful kind of place. It's maybe not so much in this movie, just because so much of it plays out at nighttime, in the wintertime. But when you get those moments, they contrast really, really well. And then Death's realm obviously sits on the other side of that.
The other point I have, took me in my second watch to realize what was going on. So the criminals have Ernie's cart and they're on their way to go through walls, and there's this screaming in the background.
Oh yeah.
And it's Violet, Tooth Fairy wrapped up. But the screaming is just so intense. It sounds like Tea Time has been on a bit of a killing spree en route to hijacking the cart. I don't think it is overkill. it could be critically derided as overkill, but it works. It really evokes the mood, like a piece of music, I think.
It threw me as well. I was rewatching it last night, and I kept thinking my kids had woken up. It was like somebody was screaming in my house. It's like, what's that noise? Like, oh, it's in the show. But then I was like, what is it in the show? I said, oh yeah, it's Violet is wrapped up in the carpet. So right, okay. Yeah, it took me like 3 beats to kind of figure out what was going on there. Yeah, I should shout out actually Gavin Finney, who's the cinematographer. We talked a lot about the great lighting and the color choices, the shot choices, and I believe he shot all the Discworld adaptations and also the Good Omens adaptation too. So he's somebody that the Pratchett estate obviously really believes in. He's got a lot of other great credits too, stuff that you would definitely recognize. Wolf Hall, very moody, very well shot series. So yeah, lots of challenges for a cinematographer in something like this, especially on this kind of budget, especially to make it as cinematic as they managed. But I think the team between him, the director, and the visual effects guys, have really done a good job.
Yeah, looks just perfect. Yeah.
Shall I read the second one?
Please do.
Season Squeakings. Tea Time's gang arrive at the tower, Tooth Fairy's castle. Ridgely tries bloody stupid Johnson's shower and meets the Veruca gnome. Hex might explain, but is assigned to talk to the brusher. Susan crosses paths with Grandfather, the Hogfather, on his rounds. Seeking the truth, she sets out for the Castle of Bones, which collapses on her, and the Oh God of Hangovers. Death and Albert begin work at the grotto with a big sword, a pony, and a surprise when Aaron's mother gets those boxes home. Yeah, the Bone Cat actually there's some cool, very, very cool locations, very cool sets in this bit. Like the Tooth Fairy's castle. Like I've got the show running alongside me, just on mute as we go through, and they've just arrived at the castle, so this is timing. Good.
That's one of my picks, my nitpicks.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah. Now, my nitpicks was when I was watching the 12 Days featurettes, and I'm a lot kinder to it now, but initially it felt like some of that really bad 70s Doctor Who, Blake 7 kind of just the overuse of white, the obvious polystyrene, kind of, it looked very cheap. Now, when of course I put on my my proper watch the film glasses, and it's a Tooth Fairy's castle, and so that use of white. I don't know if there's any other way to have done it, other than to use white so much. So it kind of grew on me, and because it's not just all like obvious polystyrene stuff. We've got the room with the teeth cabinets. We've got the stairwells. We've got the small little rooms that only have a guard in it that tea time is going to disrupt. There is enough variety to make it a fully realized location, enough to spend about half of the film in.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm just looking at it right now, and like the floors look nice and solid, quite marbly. The full exterior walls, similarly, but some of the more interior architecture, like some of the archways and pillars and stuff like that, maybe don't look as good. Some of the finish on them, like you say, is more like textured polystyrene, but you can't have the same glossy finish on everything. Otherwise,
it's
there'll
hard
be
to
no
cross
perspective.
that because so much else, the other half of the film just looks absolutely beautiful. It looks like a fantasy world. It's someplace else. It's fully realized. It doesn't look green screen or blue screen at all. It's just such an immersive experience.
Yeah, it's that great time period where even for something like this, even for a TV movie, where you're still forced to use a mix of digital graphics and miniatures and real sets. There's no version of this that can be made at this time period just with digital, just with green screen. So even though, like, yes, this is mostly a physical set, there's definitely some blue screen set extension going on, but so much of it feels tactile, feels real, even if it doesn't feel like 100%. Well, I suppose the get out of jail free card for this is that this is somewhere that was conjured from the imagination of children. Do you know what I mean? So you can blame the kids if the architecture feels a little bit.
So I can do that.
Yeah, right. So, and the fact that the guards, like the helmets, the tooth helmets, look quite silly and stuff. And you go, yeah, but these guys exist because kids believe in them for whatever reason. So maybe it isn't going to feel 100% real. Maybe it is going to look a little bit silly, but that it feels like that's of the world. That's of Discworld. That's the conceit that we've been asked to believe in. So yeah, I like it. Yeah, and just the silliness of it, and that sort of slight campiness, that slight 70s Doctor Who-ness, and then they just come in and just start straight up murdering people. I think it's a nice contrast as well. So,
yeah, I like the tooth helmets that give it a sort of a little drummer boy kind of look to it, toy-like. Yeah.
Yeah, and then something quite important, I think, is set up here, which is that you can't, strictly speaking, die in these worlds. So when the tooth fairy guards get killed, they just disappear, and then their bodies land in Discworld, which is setting up a relatively important plot conceit for later on, if I recall.
I mean, I've noted here the Tooth Fairy's tower has that famous Escher painting look to it.
Yeah, with all the staircases. Yeah,
realized.
Yeah, I understand your criticisms, but it's a very fun sequence for me, especially that first one where they come in and just start massacring everybody.
I want to nitpick the auditors. I think
really?
They look fantastic. I think the problem is audio. I think a bunch more voice manipulation could have gone a long way. Or, I mean, the actors sound very sound like us, PJ. Sound very sort of.
What are you trying to say?
Auditors shouldn't be working class. These are people who've never done a day's work in their life. A bit more of a elitist kind of thing, and a bit of a stereo equalizer effery.
Yeah, I would be. Oh, thanks, Wolverine. Just got a shout in saying, have a good watch. Can't stay for all of it, but we watch this most Christmases. Oh, good to hear. Love Susan's casting. Yes, especially her death scenes. So spine-tinglingly good. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Absolutely great shout. I think I'm going to try and make it a bit of a every Christmas tradition myself off the back of all this kind of love that we're getting for it. Now I see if I can get my kids involved in it as well. So yeah, thanks for the shout out. Thanks for watching. Yeah, well, we're talking about the auditors there. Yeah, so I don't know if I would have wanted like a lot more special effects, because I think they have quite a bit of exposition to deliver, and we have to kind of understand what their motivations are, and they don't have a lot of action. They basically just float around telling us what their motivations are. So that has to be clear. But I do agree that their accents could be a little less friendlier. They've got quite comedy voices, which is an odd choice, I guess. Yeah, they feel quite friendly and when they shouldn't. It's a good shout. It's a good shout. So I've just got as far as the introduction of Albert, who sort of comes around, he walks in around the time.
Yeah, I mean, he makes a fantastic foil. He and the actor who plays Death really do work as a great double act.
For sure. When he just sort of walks in with the frying pan in his hand and a roll up, a fag sticking out of his mouth, and you just go like, even if you don't know the book, you don't know anything about this character, the fact that this guy exists in the same world as Death is hilarious. It's really, really, and David Jason obviously nails all that performance wise too.
I mean, he's one of the things I like about him is he's mostly invisible as David Jason. Maybe I said that earlier. Mm-hmm. The Rowley stuff's kind of pretty cool at first as a smoker, but after a while I found it a little distracting.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that probably keeps this from being like repeated for kids, is that like you're not really allowed to have those kind of depictions of tobacco use in kids shows anymore. And arguably it doesn't add anything really to the story. But it just kind of shows you like 2006 doesn't feel like that long ago to me. But it just kind of shows you like what you could get away with in family programming. Even then, that you just can't get away with now. I don't know if he ever lights a cigarette, but he's always either kind of rolling one or he's got an unlit one in his mouth.
Blows away. No, the final scene with Albert is he finally gets his cigarette lit, takes a draw.
Oh yeah,
decides he's not interested and throws it out.
And maybe that's how they decide to get away with it. I know in the CW Constantine show had similar issues, and they tried to get around it in a similar fashion, but that was for adults. And even then, they was quite strict on what they could show. But this is meant to be for kids, ostensibly.
I have a note here. It says Ian Richardson is perfectamondo. There's so many great quotables for cutting up and inserting the misdelivery of ho ho ho. My favorite. Let me see if I can do this justice. Applesauce.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the ho ho ho. I do that sometimes for my kids, and they don't know what I'm doing because they haven't seen this. I just look at it and they go, ho ho ho. I can't do it.
And be good. This is part of the agreement.
Yeah. Have you
head to the toy store scene?
Yeah, the whole I can't. I think we'll probably spend a while talking about that. So let's save it for when it comes. Which is in this sequence, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
this is in part.
I don't have any more notes apart from that sequence.
Oh, let's just talk about that then, because it's
go into it.
so much good stuff in it.
I've got a note here. That sequence feels both Dickens and modern. Tony Robinson also is kind of invisible in the best possible way, as a compliment.
He's playing against type, which is wonderful. He's not being Baldric. He's very much more Melchett than Baldric in this. I think there's some of the visual effects here. It's a big set. There's explosions. There's CGI pigs, hogs running around. Tony Robinson's there having a complete meltdown. We get the first on-screen appearance of Corporal Nobby Nobbs.
You've just raised a Pandora's box detail there. Right. We need the name of this actor, because this guy is just incredible.
Nicholas Tennant, his name is.
Nicholas Tennant. Oh, it's it's not the only way to realize Corporal Nobby Nobbs, but it's a sure as hell good one. Just that sort of huge teeth, the nose is sort of he's doing little things with his lips, with his eyes. There's a grotesquerie about him.
I would say that he's maybe a little bit too tall. That's it. That's my only criticism.
Critical nitpicking.
Everything else is brilliant. I would agree. And it's not his fault. I'm sure he's whatever height he is and happy with it. But yeah, that's the only slight issue I would have with that. And Visit as well. Constable Visit, the infidels with explanatory pamphlets, whose full name doesn't. I felt they should have dropped the full name.
Washpot Visit.
Yeah, because they only call him Constable Visit, and then you don't get the. He also just some extra knowledge dropped in that Nicholas Tennant also plays the librarian before he turns into an ape, which is excellent casting. Yeah, so they obviously, I mean, he nailed it. They did a great job. Definitely bring that guy back.
And I think I might have been a bit spoiled critically, because we did way back 3 years ago, plus we did Color Magic and Light Fantastic, and then we went straight to the adaptations. And I wonder how, I think we spoiled me a bit, didn't we? I wonder how I might feel about them now.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because these are production order rather than publication order, and the fact that you've got Joss Ackland playing Ridgely instead of James Cosmo, little things like that, I guess might throw you. I think James Cosmo is a bit too serious, possibly a bit got too much presence for the kind of some of the real slapstick comedy in the Wizard sections in this. But yeah, I see what you mean. That like this is kind of ground zero for live action Discworld, and you kind of skipped ahead on that. But you can't keep all these different orders of things. You know, you'll go crazy. But Nobby and Death, I just can't move on from that. Like that performance, I always loved it in this, and then I remember like that being a really quite a touching moment in the book. You know, there's a lot more context of Nobby's childhood and all that, and what it means, you know, for him to be transported back to his childhood and sitting on the Hogfather's knee, and then rewatching that performance, rewatching Nicholas Tennant's performance with all that in mind, just like, ooh, like it's all there. He's putting that all on the screen.
Yeah. It really succeeds in distilling it to the bare basics of that scene, giving Nicholas Tennant enough to work with that he knocks it out of the park there. Just
absolutely
fantastic. And the main part of that scene is also a bit distilled, I think, where the children come in to visit the Hogfather, and we really only get one child, whereas in the novel I think we had a few.
Yeah, which is fair enough, I guess. You know,
it's an absolutely fantastic scene in the book. It totally is there on screen, and it's great seeing all that text brought to life in the multiple dimensions of the disapproving mother as well as a disapproving store owner.
The sword,
sort of stopping time to do his sort of negotiation, because this is for the child, this isn't for the parent. And the negotiation with him and Albert, it's just beautiful, isn't it?
It's tremendous, yeah. And that the delivery of one of my favorite lines from the book, you know, of when the kid gets the sword, you can't give her a sword, it's educational. She could cut her head off. That will be she could hurt herself. That would be a very important lesson.
Yeah.
It's Ian, I mean, that's you've got you know, that is almost like something that his character in House of Cards would say, you know. Absolutely nailed on. Or what if she cuts herself? That's the line. That will be an important lesson. Tremendous. You can just cut that in. Don't let me butcher it. You can cut that in the edit.
My notes also say Michelle Dockery is fine. Her hair reminds me of a spider. And I felt there was too much cutting between tiny little scenes, but also that it succeeds as turn off your brain and ride television.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The kind of three storylines, the constant cutting between the three storylines does get a bit much maybe at this stage. It's tricky. I mean, actually, it's 4 because you're cutting to the wizards as well at this point. So it's, yeah, I accept that. I mean, it's a very common issue with second acts, I guess, where your disparate threads have all been set up and they're all off and running, but they haven't really started to converge yet. And I guess with this 2-part format that they've given themselves, that you're going to maybe try and hold off on that and have your big kind of coming together moments play out before the midpoint finale, because that's when you're going to cut the credits and hope everybody's going to come back and watch it again on Boxing Day. So yeah, I would sort of agree with that. I think maybe from the 1 hour point, the last kind of half an hour maybe does sag a little bit. But I also remember maybe I think we had some slight issues with that when we read it as well. The once they get to the Tooth Fairy's tower, they just kind of they get stuck there for a while. Not a lot happens until it needs to happen. So I think that criticism can potentially be made of the book as well. Where does that leave us?
Do we have anything more in this part we want to point out?
God of Hangovers?
Oh, God of Hangovers, yes. It was played quite well.
Yeah, some Welsh guy. Don't know. Hadn't heard of him before.
Rodri Mailer. Yeah, decent enough job.
See if I recognize him for anything else. He doesn't have a profile picture on IMDb, which is rarely. Oh, he's in Pride, which I liked.
Oh, I'll have another little nitpick. Yes, Rid Cully's Bloody Johnson shower. Why couldn't it have been like, why couldn't it have just been like a tidal wave and like all the sets could have been destroyed along with like Rid Cully just getting knocked back and stuff? And yeah, of course we can blame the British government for throwing another $1 million at that.
I don't know how much public funding this would have had as a Sky One production in the early 2000s, but probably got some BFI money or something. Yeah, but I agree. Where's the production value here, people? We want to see naked old men getting swept away on tidal waves. That's what we're here for. Yeah. Make it happen, you cowards. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was actually thinking back, having obviously watched this a long time ago and then recently read the book, thinking actually they probably could have got away with not doing the Bloody Johnson shower thing. They probably could have found another way to introduce the Veruca Gnome and that storyline, because it involves a lot of naked old men and contraptions that are hard to build and hard to maybe show off. So fair play to them for giving it a go. And I think it came off actually quite well.
Yeah, quite agree.
Yes, I know you were just having a jolly there.
Will I go into the next part?
Please do.
Okay. Glingle. Mr. Cromie is not impressed with the new Hogfather, but Corporal Nobbs is impressed with his burly and strong in the arm, double action, triple cantilever crossbow with a polished walnut stock and engraved silver facings. The wizards make a breakthrough with the ultimate hangover cure. They also conjure up the hair loss fairy and the eater of socks. Death spares a match girl. Susan and Bilious look for Violet, a missing tooth fairy, and Rid Cully tries to reprogram Hex, and Albert has a quiet word with a king. I'm not quite sure what that last bit's about. I don't believe that was in the film.
No, and when we talked about this in the book, that felt very much like a standalone vignette when Death visits this. Feels like a fairy tale in action, essentially, where a king arrives at a peasant's house or one of his subjects' house, and I can't even remember what the moral of the story is, but it was very much a standalone piece of action that was thematically relevant, especially to the whole meaning of Christmas, meaning of Hogswatch kind of storyline that was going on with Death. But I'm not at all surprised that they didn't include that. I'm even like a little bit impressed / surprised that they kept the match girl bit in, because it's quite dark.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, I can't remember if we went back and forward about that being a good thing in the original, or was this more, I'm mixing that up with our talk about Vimes finding a dead match girl in a later book that was quite sad and quite real. I really like that it was kept in this treatment. It only used a couple of minutes, only needed a couple of minutes, because, like Death says, he's the Hogfather, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, that sort of slightly contradictory nature of Christmas spirit, as it were. The fact that, like, for you to be grateful for what you have, you need to have kind of a yardstick for that, and how obviously unfair that is. And Death won't stand for it, or is turning into a kind of being that won't allow that to happen. Like, it's kind of the best parts of Death combined with the best parts of the Hogfather, sort of give him this extra agency or whatever. I was in retrospect thinking that's a part of the book. Once I did read the book and thought back on the adaptation, I was like, they were pretty brave to include that. I can see it's the sort of storyline that Terry would probably stick up for, in meetings and stuff like that. You could see that being important to him. So actually, it should worth mentioning that by my count, we're now in part 2 of the adaptation.
Yep, we're just on the sort of part 1, part 2 bridge over. One of the things that was also dialed back on was the amount of imaginary creatures. We lost, by my reckoning, we lost a wisdom tooth goblin, a stealer of pencils, a god of indigestion, and thankfully the tile wasps, which I was not looking forward to seeing. But I really love what we did get. We got the hair loss fairy with the little lawnmower. I can't remember if that's how Terry described the creature. That was just a marvel.
Yeah.
The eater of socks, who's this little sort of like armadillo kind of,
like an anteater. I think it's meant to be like an anteater's snout. Yeah,
I think that is how Terry described that creature
Yeah.
in the book. It was lovely seeing it realized. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, again, it's tricky because obviously those creations are difficult to deploy in any kind of financially responsible fashion in a show like this. But they made the ones that they had count, and I think I'm fairly certain the lawnmower is an addition for the screen that really works.
Yeah.
It's something so ridiculous but so banal that, like, it's very Discworld, and just to point out, I suppose, that Terry's cameo is also around the start of part 2. I think it's about 10 minutes in.
This is the scene Albert is talking about his Hogswatch and the what was it, rocking horse in the window.
He's looking.
Freezes himself to the window pane, and it's beautifully reprised as one of the final scenes in that. Really nice cameo by Terry. Really.
So it comes in 2. Does it come in 2 hits, or is it? Yes, it does. Yeah, so it doesn't get the line until the end, but you get the first look at him putting the sign on the horse, and Albert's little nose frozen to the window. Yeah, I mean, as we probably always expected, at least from the book, and at least knowing that Terry Pratchett's involved in this adaptation, and it's going to be relatively faithful. That, like, the idea that there's kids out there who don't get everything that they want for Christmas is even though some of this darker stuff isn't touched on, like these, he's sticking with that. Like they're not pulling any punches. And I know you're not the biggest David Jason fan, and I wouldn't necessarily be either, but he narrates that scene quite well. He pulls a bit of, he's got a drama chop or two,
Yeah. I'm a bit harder than David Jason, probably quite unreasonably.
But his
I just don't think Only Fools and Horses is the greatest comedy ever made.
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, we'll not get off on a tangent about Only Fools and Horses, but my in-laws are huge on it, and it was never a favorite of mine.
5 years.
Oh, cool. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we love the young ones. We love Nigel Planer. Come back for that. I'm sorry, I've just stopped listening to you and I've just started watching the show again. Immediately after that sequence, he spends the rest of the conversation with Death with a Rizla stuck to his bottom lip, which is a brave performance choice for sure. Excellent. Anyway, moving on.
I've got a few notes here, but do we want to circle back around to how brilliant Mark Warren is?
Yes, I feel like we just sort of set that up at the top, just like the default kind of, this is brilliant. This is why it's brilliant. And then we haven't talked about it again, which is probably unfair, I mean, I think like a certain standard is set at the start, and the way that he interacts with all those characters, he sort of settles into a groove. And then I think at some point quite soon, it's gonna kick up a notch, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, as part of the book, completely unnerving character. And I mean, Terry and Vadim Jean as a scriptwriter for this have given him the tools, but it's upon him to make use of those. And boy, does he really just sort of, you can feel the creepy crawlies inside you as you're watching his performance.
Yeah, for sure. So what I've got up on screen at the minute is where he is just standing over Mr. Brown, the locksmith, basically, like, in that way that he does, in the way that it's described in the book, to be fair, being perfectly pleasant and polite, but absolutely terrifying at the same time. And it's easy-ish to write that on a page. No mean feat to pull it off in a performance, and to kind of to pace that and build that into kind of, the escalating tension of an overall narrative as well. So yeah, you just, at this point, I think after you've had that sort of slightly muddled late middle section, when you come back in, their goal is in sight. And if they don't get results, Tea Time's going to do something really bad to them.
Yeah, there's a line Susan has about the kid that didn't know the difference between throwing stones at a cat and setting fire to a cat. That's Tea Time all over Mark Warren.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to mention Garth Ennis again.
Well, you just did. You just did.
Do every episode for some reason. But,
I stand by it.
Villain.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably a bit more restrained than your average Garth Ennis villain would be. Not as much genitalia on display, which is all to the good. You might get away with a few roll-up cigarettes in a Kids Sky One special, but that's probably the extent of it. Can't let Garth Ennis anywhere near. The less said about that, the better. The hangover cure scene, I'm just currently flicking through.
Coming to Sky next Christmas, clubbing seals at Gotham Aquarium.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing about this is most of Garth Ennis's worst successes have made their way to screen. Preacher exists, The Boys exists on screen. So just not as Christmas time family entertainment. Bilious sobering up. I don't mind this, the hangover cure thing. I feel it's maybe a bit drawn out. It's also impossible to top the very best on-screen hangover cure on British television, which is from Red Dwarf. Do you remember that?
You have to remind me.
Where they get, I believe it's Crichton, to eat a bowl of raw coffee beans to sober him up. So they just pour the coffee beans into a bowl, and he just eats them like cereal. That's all he's stuck about.
I think the hangover cure was for Bilious was fairly good on the page, and it's fairly faithful here. We get a bit of explosion. Could have been notched up a bit, but it works. It's
Yes.
passing grade again.
So Susan's reaction.
The film is passing grade.
Oh, I mean,
it does feel.
No, completely agreed. And I think Michelle Dockery actually carries this scene in a lot of ways where like she gets to have a lot of fun with it, I suppose, because she gets to play against all the wizards, and she gets to be the kind of no nonsense, sensible one in the face of all their kind of puffing and bluffing. And
yeah, she has quite a lot of comic beat opportunities throughout the film that she makes the most of. You can see her having fun with them. Like when Bilious and Violet are kind of locking eyes, and she's like,
oh yeah.
Them
Considering like comedy on screen, performance-wise, is a very different beast than comedy on stage. And her background prior to this would have been mostly stage, but she, as far as I know, anyway. But yeah, just those little like the timing of like a facial expression, like that has to be quite subtle for screen because the camera is ideally right in your face rather than like the big broad kind of slapstick gestures of stage comedy, I guess. And there is a lot of that in this film, especially with the wizards, but she's very consciously not playing it that way. She's playing it exactly as she should, and considering this is her first proper stage role, I think that's extremely impressive. And I mean, obviously that's why she got the role. She obviously auditioned well for this, but like, yeah, nails it the whole way through.
Yeah, it's a lighter touch on it. Nails it. She nails it.
She's got Ridley shouting down the horn to Hex at the moment.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I've even drawn for our visual readers. I've drawn a little big smiley beside that point.
It does look like the scratchings of a madman on that pad there. But yeah, a lot of the props budget went into Hex. It's got moving parts. It's got the auto pen, the auto quill as described. It's got the big buttons. It's got the anthill inside sticker on it. It's got all the trimmings that Terry describes.
I'm going to jump ahead a bit here to the final part because we're talking about Hex. When Death working, Hex is just quite fantastic as well. There's just where the hourglass shoots up, from Hex, and it mirrors what we've been seeing with Death all along. It's really interesting how this character of Hex works so well with other characters, with Ponder, with Ridcully, Death.
For being, it's again, easier in very relative terms, but to imbue it with life on the page where you can describe any aspect of it you want at any length compared to showing it on screen. Yeah, I think they do a really good job of giving it that personality and, spending the time and the money to make sure that it has moving parts, to make sure that it's got different kinds of materiality, that it feels like it's really been hodgepodged together in the way that Terry describes it, that it's got bits from, feather quills, ants, bits of like copper machinery, wires, keys. Yeah, it's a subtle kind of thing, but like the sort of thing that if it wasn't done well, those scenes would feel off, and there's quite a lot of exposition has to come out in those scenes, and you don't want to be distracted by like a bad prop or like something that feels clunky. Everything, you want to be totally immersed in those moments.
Do you know what it's reminding me of a few different things. Remind me of the classic Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. It's reminding me of a few years after this, we've got Matt Smith's TARDIS. And even like going back to the 60s, the absolutely canon Doctor Who Peter Cushing and his TARDIS, which had the same toy shop kind of aesthetic. Hex, so many moving parts, and like all the stuff we wanted from the book, the anthills, the rodents, the quills. The whole toy shop extravaganza is there.
Indeed. And
so thank you.
Yeah, I did mean to check who the production designer for this was. I didn't. Apologies. Shout out to you, production design / art department team. That kind of classic British mid 20th century fantasy sci-fi, like that's what Discworld is born from. So to be able to carry that over into the visual language of the adaptations it's 100% the right move. You know, that's exactly the sort of place you should be taking your inspiration for this kind of prop. It's classic Doctor Who all day long.
I only have one more note from this part.
Go for it.
It's a false beard. No, it's not.
Just my favorite thing about the behind the scenes was just the glimpses you got of Ian Richardson doing the performances in the booth and just his facial expressions. And in a way, obviously, it's funnier because Death doesn't really have a facial expression, and that makes a lot of the lines funnier. But some of his performances, his facial performances of the lines were so funny. And it occasionally cuts to Vadim and I guess the audio engineer, and they're just cracking up at every single line. And, you know, that must have been a really, really fun day, I would imagine, in the booth. But, oh man, Ian Richardson, like, what a legend. He passed on not too long after this, I think, like maybe a year or so. Yeah. But then we got Christopher Lee. It was good, but like, I was better for the short performances. You know, when Death pops in and out of The Color of Magic, that earlier version of Death that Terry was writing at the start suits Christopher Lee better than this more kind of well-rounded, kind of more vulnerable Death, I think, that we got here. So we got exactly the right casting, I think, for both versions. But yeah, this will be forever hard to beat, especially after watching him do it live in the behind the scenes. That really stayed with me. That must have been, just trying to see if that was his, I don't think he was so prolific. This wouldn't have been his last role, would it?
I'm not sure. But certainly one of his last.
Yeah, no, he's got a couple more credits that on IMDb, but yeah. Oh man. It has made me want to go back and rewatch. I haven't watched The British House of Cards. For I don't know how long, but I did rewatch Dark City quite recently. He plays this really creepy bad guy in Dark City from 1998. I don't want to say any more than that if anybody listening or watching hasn't seen it, but he's quite the presence in that. But in it, like, it almost is like if Death had no humor and had a face. Super, super scary. Well, worth checking out. Sorry, that was just I just went off on a tangent there to rant about Ian Richardson for a while. But I think, you know, if anybody deserves it.
One of the reasons we're here.
Absolutely.
Do you want to go ahead and read the fourth part?
Do I? Yeah, absolutely. So, 'twas the night before Hogswatch. Making house calls, Death and Albert discuss the spirit of Hogswatch in relation to the socio-economic factors of a below-the-poverty-line existence. Wizards argue, Ridgely, Ponder, and Hex figure out the problem with belief, namely, a cheerful fairy. Blinky flies through the colors of the springtime of the eye. So I don't know how much of that actually happens, and certainly some of it we've talked about already, for sure. So it's interesting how the pacing actually, even though we sort of had some criticisms of the pacing at the back end of the last episode, I feel like the pacing of the screen version has picked up here in comparison with the book, for sure.
Yeah, I was looking at that description, and there's actually a lot more. I had to, when I was writing this, break it down into two separate paragraphs.
Oh, yeah. I missed a bit. Yeah, sorry, there's more happens. Apologies.
There's a lot, yeah.
Tea Time puts Medium Dave in his place and kills the locksmith. Death asks Ridgely about pencils. Susan finds a pile of teeth. Shadows in the walls come for Cat's Eye, and Peachy is met by the Scissor Man.
Again, some more missions. I'm trying to remember, is Cat's Eye in this even?
No. Yeah, you cut a member from the team. That's right, and for good reason, to be fair. But I guess that's kind of what I was sort of alluding to there. That like all those kind of little nips and tucks to the pacing are really helping this section along.
So, who is it? What's the locksmith's name in the book?
Arthur.
Trying to remember the name of the actor who plays him.
You definitely get a huge amount of screen time, but yeah, I don't know if it was anybody.
I don't even know if he's listed in my show notes. If anybody is in chat and would like to help us out with the name of locksmith in the gang.
If IMDb is to be believed, he's uncredited.
Ooh.
Unless I've got the name wrong.
Doesn't seem right.
Doesn't seem right.
There's his final scene is just phenomenal. It's one that really sticks with me, where he stands up to tea time. I mean, it's exactly as it is in the book.
Yeah.
It's just performed so well that it re-invokes that. I mean, that's what's great about these adaptations, is that it boosts the signal some more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of those scenes where if you read it on Terry does have a good mind for cinematic storytelling, and those kind of scenes have to be protected. And I think that's why it's so great having Stephen Briggs, having Terry himself involved in this. People who kind of understand what is non-negotiable in terms of like scenes that you would lose. And that's definitely one of them. And you could see the argument, maybe from an exec or somebody being like, well, this character, the locksmith, if IMDb is to be believed, doesn't even have a name. Mr. Brown. Thanks, SB. The character is called Mr. Brown, but we're struggling on the actor. So yeah, Mr. Brown stands up to tea time. It's so important. But if you looked at how much screen time he'd had up to then, how many lines he'd had, you might go, well, why are we giving him this moment when we haven't really set him up? But it's not so much about that. It's not so much about him. It's about what he represents and what his defiance to tea time represents. And yeah, the guy nails it. Like it's weird that he is it mentioned? Oh no, sorry, that's a lie. Jeffrey Hutchings. This you might have to cut around this because he's actually relatively prolific character actor. Yeah, also turns up in The Color of Magic as a picture imp, which is cool.
Right. So another Shakespearean trained actor. We've seen him, let's see, Bill, Kenneth Branagh, Jim Broadbent, of course. It's in Clockwise.
Going all the way back to 1965. Like this, this dude's turned up in Carry On movies and everything. So yeah, his performance again, super understated. Does a lot with very little. And yeah, that's a scene for the ages, I think, for his career. Quite a long storied career, but like, yeah, going toe to toe with Mark Warren's Tea Time is for sure. That's a good moment.
Another of those actors who worked with other actors on this set sadly passed away shortly after 2010.
It's crazy. Yeah,
was in Drop the Dead Donkey, an episode of playing Albert.
There you go. Cross paths with the old quote the Raven then.
The Raven, yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit around this time that I think's just worth mentioning as well. Because I know maybe some of the effects we've called out or some of the set building we've called out. But Susan Anbilius riding the horse through the child's painting or through her painting from when she was a child. It's not a long sequence. It's about half an hour into the second part. And for what must be a pure blue screen shoot, it looks really, really well. They're meant to be moving through a 2D image, which is, again, relatively easy thing to describe on the page, but to put it on screen in a convincing way is really, really difficult. And they managed to keep the light. The light looks relatively good. The background looks exactly as it does on the set in terms of like the real painting come to life. And then there's a moment where she kneels down and like pulls the paint out of it's. She's painted a stream in the picture, and she kneels down and lifts the water from the stream, but it's paint.
It's paint,
and
right?
The texture of that, it's great. It's a really, really good example of. Well, maybe it is a real set. I'm just looking at it. Maybe they just painted it.
It's a tits balls.
Yeah,
and we've already had it set up quite early on. We've seen the painting of the house. And it was fairly early in the show.
And taking care to establish that, because in a screen narrative, if you don't set that up early, if you try to kind of describe that as it happens, as you might get away with in a novel, you certainly won't get away with that on screen. As I look at this, I wonder, did they just do the painting for real as a background? Maybe it's not blue screened. They might have just painted that set. Just trying to see how many angles there are on it.
We have Binky's hooves walking through it.
Yeah, it's got such good texture. Like you can see the strokes. I don't know. I think that might have to be. I don't know what kind of brush it would do. It's great. I would love that. I wish they had a bit more of that. I don't think they have any of that in the behind the scene. Sorry, I'll try not to derail this. I've got a bit of a professional interest in how things like this get made at the moment, so I'll try not to derail the conversation about it too much. But when she kneels down for the paint, I was just like, that's great. Just establishes that scene as like a tactile, real place, even though it's so obviously imaginary. Like the white gap between the sky and the grass, everything about it's perfect. So I would say that probably for me is their BAFTA winning moment. So they did win. Yeah. 2007 winner, BAFTA TV Awards, Best Visual Effects. Simon Thomas and Oliver Money. So I'd say there's a lot of good effects in it. There's a lot of effects that sort of scrape by, but that painting scene is as good as anything. So yeah, that's the BAFTA moment there for me.
I don't have too much more to say about this part. My notes actually just sort of kept going. I thought I was still on the previous part. So it was just how taken in I was by the piece of entertainment in front of me. It's really just, really splendid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's around this time that things take that sort of creepier turn in the Tooth Fairy's domain, where who's this come tumbling down the stairs?
Yeah, already you can see sort of Tea Time's plans kind of sort of fraying at the edges, even though it looks like he's, all the Nigel Planer, Sydney has unlocked the last of the locks, and
yeah, but they start to get that
point. But it feels like, obviously we know because we're reading it or watching it that we're into the last act. But at the greatest moment of Tea Time's victory just looks like it keeps ascending, but it really feels like it's falling apart as part of the structure.
Yeah,
something external.
Yeah, because they're starting to get affected by being in this kind of imaginary place, and not Medium Dave, the other one, Chickenmire, starts to think that he's being chased by something, and we start to get those kind of nice kind of horror movie vibes back in. So there's just like such tension in these scenes. You've got Tea Time on one side, and you've got this potential either something actually is chasing him or they're all starting to go mad. So then on top of that, so that's the situation that Susan walks into, that Susan and Bilious arrive into. So like the tension and the stakes just couldn't really be any higher at that moment, which is great.
Shall I go on and read the final part, which is a fistful of finales?
Please do.
I've titled this December 32nd. Chickenwire plays hide and seek with the Dean. I don't know if that's in it. Death confides in Ridcully and Hex. Tea Time's plan is foiled by Mal Lillywhite. Susan faces off against the first bogeyman. Banjo is put in charge of the grotto. The Hogfather is reborn. Ridcully takes a power shower. And Tea Time meets the governess in final battle. Death buys a rocking horse. So, yeah, there's quite a lot going on there.
Hey, you said it instead of me. Love it. Yeah, I mean, really, like it's kind of the last half of the second part. You know, it's the kind of section where you go, like you say, it's lots of finales, and that's something you can have a lot of fun with on screen in terms of set pieces, especially intercutting set pieces. Really, you know, deliver the kind of promise of your premise to the audience here. Especially it's Boxing Day. This is your big Christmas event. This is where you got to stick the landing, and I think it's great that they take the time to do that. I've just got to as I watch on my other monitor, the sequence of Death and Hex, you know, that we mentioned earlier. And you know, the amount of kind of time spent on it, the amount of shots of Hex doing stuff, not doing stuff, back to Death, just building that tension. Like, how is this interaction going to play out? Death asks Hex whether it believes.
And yeah, getting back to the boosting the signal thing, this really exposes how structurally sound Terry has built this.
Yeah,
that Death is enlisting this machine that's capable of conscious thought to believe, to further the existence of the Hogfather. That's some really sound writing skills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Perhaps seems a bit kind of quaint and ironic in the current days of chatbots convincing people to kill themselves and stuff like that. But like, this is the opposite of that. You know, it's kind of sweet in many ways. You know, Terry always had this belief, shared by us, I would imagine, you know, people of our generation who were into kind of technology, that it ultimately would be a force for good, you know, and Hex is an embodiment of that, I think, an embodiment of kind of Terry's hopes in that regard for what technology can be. Obviously, that hasn't panned out. Maybe for the best that he didn't live to see it. That's a bit dark. This is meant to be the Christmas episode. But hey, Terry got dark sometimes too.
Mistletoe and wine.
Nice. I've run out. Live stream, I can't pause it to get more Baileys.
This is a live stream tradition. We probably should have paused and taken our toilet break just a minute ago.
Well, we're on the last section now. We got to strike on, I think.
I've written another plot point, satisfying Western, but that could be used to apply to anything. I thought the piece where Tea Time has his sword on Susan as they're climbing the stairs was quite good, because I mean, physically, I mean, Susan, who is higher up on the stairs, you should think would easily be able to take Tea Time out. But it just points to what a terrifying villain Tea Time is, what a capable bastard. And unnerving character.
Yeah, I'm just watching it right now. Yeah, the fact that she has the high ground on him, but he is pushing her back up the stairs. Like, he's armed and she's not, but she's Susan Stohill. Like, we know that she's powerful, but he just is completely capable of pushing her back. And also because he's pushing her up the stairs, he's pushing her away from the exit, so she's trapped. So the further, it's quite an interesting kind of choice. Like, I believe it was written that way. in the novel as well, but visually that gives you some sort of staging challenges, compositional challenges in terms of how you want that power dynamic between the characters to be visualized. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting that he's lower and smaller than her in those frames, but he's so threatening. And the sword, Death Sword, is an awesome prop as well. And it's like it's a really good size. It's just like a little bit too big for human hands. And the way that they both end up wielding it, like it really looks badass.
Another shout out to Stephen Marcus as Banjo.
Yep.
Who I mean, I don't know if he bulked up for this. He's just an enormous human being. And when he's called upon to actually speak with his mouth, he really just delivers. It really gives us what we want from that character.
Yeah, absolutely. All the stuff with Ma Lillywhite and the boys and their, I mean, it's in danger of being a little bit, I don't know what, like Route One, I guess, where it's like, oh yeah, they've kids from a bad household end up doing bad things, but just like forcing them to confront that as adults is where the kind of the interest comes from in those sequences. And yeah, like you said, their performance of it, and particularly the first time you really see Banjo come alive, I guess, as a three-dimensional character, like that comes sort of out of nowhere, but in a good way. You know, you're not necessarily expecting this nuanced performance to come out, even though you've no reason not to, but you've no reason to either. And yeah, like you said, he really nails it. I prefer it in this. Sorry, just to go on about that a little bit more. When I listened to the audiobook of this a little bit when we did it last year, and those bits aren't as good. I don't want to call out. No, it's not Tony Robinson or Nigel Planer. It's the new ones, which is it's your man, the Impressionist. He mostly does a good job. That's right. Oh, it's gonna kill me. No.
Don't put any contracts at risk.
No, I know. Yeah, but we might want to get.
I've burned my bridges with those.
Yeah, we might want to get sponsorship. But anyway, I felt that there was a bit of paddywhackery going on in those sequences. Like the Ma has like a bit of a stage Irish accent going on and stuff, and it kind of took me out of that a little bit in a way that it isn't as gratuitous in this version, you know, in the screen adaptation. I think a lot of that, like you say, comes down to the boys' performances.
I think it felt quite edited down in this version.
Yeah, be interested to know if that happened on the page or if it happened in the cutting room actually. Because yes, it does, and to be honest, that probably helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think there was trailing in the novel. It was trailing of Ma Lillywhite earlier. I know that there are a number of deleted scenes from this. See the Wikipedia entry for details, but they're possibly floating about a bit somewhere. I think they're on the DVD for sure.
Yeah, cast your net. I'm sure you'll find them. Yeah, I'm considering, considering the runtime, like they haven't had to leave much on the cutting room floor, so it's maybe a bit telling that some of that Ma Lillywhite stuff did get left there. Like you say, the guys are doing more than enough in their performances to sell it anyway. Stephen Marcus, Peter Guinness, both. So, and who actually plays Ma Lillywhite?
I didn't see her credited in my list, but past
Maggie McCarthy does fine. Yeah. Oh yeah, seen her crop up in Motherland actually. Yeah. Good for her.
Past Tea Time's Fall, the scene where Susan blows Banjo's nose is really beautiful.
Yeah,
so
yeah, and that
sold that relationship and Banjo's little redemption arc that we get.
Yeah, and just to reiterate again, just how good Terry Pratchett is at creating those little cinematic character moments, like that's in the book. That's on the page. That's you can see that being the kind of character moment that you would engineer on screen, or that performers might workshop together just to like create that little connection between characters. But the characters are so well realized before the story's even been adapted for the screen that isn't necessary.
Well, I remember when we first podcasted about the book, grumbling about Banjo's little redemption arc, or I don't know if I was grumbling about it as an authorial choice, but as a sort of this character, you know, F him, he's a killer. But what we get on screen here absolutely sells that authorial choice.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think a lot of the kind of straight up villainous stuff that we learn about them in the book, or we maybe dwell on those details a little bit more in the book than we do here anyway. So it sort of massages that character a little bit in terms of their backstory, so that their redemption arc doesn't seem quite as far-fetched. They don't have quite as far to go to reach that redemption arc, perhaps. And I think Terry, you know, I wonder if it's one of those things where like Terry sees an opportunity there to kind of smooth over a little bit of a rough edge in that initial story. Because you're right. I mean, it plays much better here on screen, I think.
I did want to say about the first bogeyman. I felt the hand on the throat of the old person was a bit uncomfortable. Great voice amplification. Yeah, guess something that I don't know if it really needed to be in there, but worked just as well. As I said, everything in this film for me gets a passing grade.
Yeah, I think you would want to. So I'm just having a quick look at it now. So as the scene progresses, the bogeyman becomes less human, but not enough. Like the hat comes off, and you can see there's, you know, there's like they've got horns or whatever, like the one that we met at the start. And you're like, if it was a bit less human looking, maybe that interaction wouldn't be, you know, but I don't know.
I mean, the way Michelle Dockery's using her body to, as directed, sit down on the bed and sort of comfort this creature.
Yeah.
That sells it.
Yeah. And then there's like, I'm just looking at it now, there's this nice kind of pull back. And then then Banjo's cleaning up actually after that, which that's definitely in the book. Which again sort of reinforces, I guess, the sort of closing of his arc as well.
Do we want to? My original satisfying Western comment was made about the scene between Death and the Auditors. So we get the huge chase with the hogs.
Oh yeah,
the hog and
the wolves.
Or the hogs. Beautiful location work in the highs of Scotland. Generally look really good.
Again, this is the sort of thing that they would just try to do all in the studio now, whereas it's a mix of studio photography and location photography, where a lot of the shots, I would say all the shots probably, when it's the wolves on their own, are on location. And then all the shots of Susan are in the studio, and there's a few shots of the dogs in the studio with them, and that's what sort of bridges the gap and makes it work. Whereas if they did that now, you would just be like, we just do all that in the studio, and it would work nowhere near as well. And I saw in the behind the scenes thing that like they went to Scotland, they took a second unit, they went up to Scotland, and it was too snowy. Like they had to sit around and wait
for the snow to stop.
Yeah. And like, and I'm sure that was a logistical nightmare, and it was a pain for production and all the rest of it. But like, this is a climatic sequence in this film.
It's
like,
a lot of work to go to for. I mean,
but it has to work. You know what I mean? If this sequence doesn't look right, this is the climax or one of the climaxes of the movie. You got to make this work, and they went for it and they did it, and then and they nailed it.
This is technically a three climax of the conflict, three conflict climaxes, and there's other endings as well. It all builds towards this beautiful shot of the resurrected Hogfather against the sun, which is on screen for about 4 seconds. It's just gorgeous, iconic. It's I think it's my favorite. It's very simple as well. It's possibly my favorite shot in the film.
Yeah. Death coming out of the snowman and saying ho ho ho, which is just prior to that, is pretty good as well. But yeah, that constant balance, like there's a lot of really genuine good jeopardy, you know, good tension, good dramatic story beats there, and then to just have the comedy beat deployed at exactly the right moment, it's just perfect. And then, like you say, the follow it up with this really beautiful, like Susan, like it's over that minute, you know, Susan's kind of grieving over the Hogfather, and then the sun just starts to come up anyway, because we know that's what we've been told the whole way through, that if the Hogfather dies, the sun won't come up, and it gets reinforced again in that last scene we see with Hex and Death. And then the first we see of it is the light hitting Susan's face, and then she realizes what that means. It's incredible. Yeah, really, really, really well done.
Our final big conflict finale is Death being invited in for Coco, finding tea time there. That's satisfying. Hits the right buttons for me as well, that one.
Yeah, and now having gone through quite a few,
creepy as in the book, the children are there, and
yeah, and that just sends the stakes through the roof. The fact that the kids, you know, the kids are in the vicinity.
Sorry to interrupt. The little boy's performance when he points tea time, says, "You're weird."
Yeah,
what is perfect. Had me in stitches. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think Mark has a good reaction to it as well, if I remember. I think it's just coming up now. But yeah, this becomes a bit of a Terry Pratchett trope. I think this actually might be the first time he really deploys it, but he nails it. Where like that, you know, you think the bad guys go on, but they come back and they hit the character at home, basically. I mean, he didn't invent it. It's a trope, and it's a trope for a reason, because it's good. And I think, you know, it definitely happens in Carpe Jugulum. I think it happens to Vimes a couple of times, actually. I think it might have, well, no spoilers. But I think this is maybe the first time I remember him doing it, and it still might be the best one, just because of tea time being tea time. And the fact that he's standing there with Death and Susan, but you're still worried. You're still scared that, because he's got the sword and you know what he's like, that this could go wrong for them. So yeah, it's a classic Terry Pratchett ending.
Yeah, except it's not the ending. We get Death going to Terry Pratchett's toy shop.
Of course,
as we a reprise of the scene from earlier, but we didn't know who was buying the rocking horse. It's a lovely little scene. Yeah, because I missed the Discworld experience, and I missed these appearances of Terry Pratchett, who was, I think at this time, was becoming more active in terms of giving screened interviews and presenting shows himself. So this sort of prolonged exposure to him is something I'm really glad of. I've been really craving it, and I got it. I felt it.
Good. Yeah. There's a very satisfying denouement as well, which is, I think it's good for a two-parter. You don't want to rush that. You know, again, if you're trying to make this one 90-minute or 100-minute movie, you know, you wouldn't necessarily make sure that you would maybe cut that rocking horse storyline. Like Albert doesn't have a huge amount of agency in this story. You could maybe lose that. I mean, I don't think you would ever lose the last beat between Susan and Death, where he gives her the Hogswatch card and everything. That's, you know, irreplaceable.
Yes, I accidentally skipped over the line about the robin. That wasn't really getting into the spirit of things.
Yeah. That's the way she's like, when he said that she's like touching the feathers and stuff, and you just realize what that means.
It took me my second viewing to actually work that out.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's excellent. Yeah, and like you said, it was great to see the behind the scenes of the recording of that, and just like what it meant for the actors. Because I think they were trying to do a thing in that documentary where they were showing the production in chronological order-ish. I think it was implied that was their last day, and then the final scenes to be shot were of the real Hogfather doing his bits in the studio. But this was like this would have been the last day of principal photography then with Michelle and I keep calling him Max. I don't think that's his name, but
it's Marnix van der Broek.
Sorry.
Marnix van den Broek.
Yeah, we got to give him a shout out. He's so good in this. He's particularly good in this scene.
Yeah. And after we're done here, we'll be finishing up shortly. Take a break, walk around, and go and watch that documentary. It's called The Whole Hog. You can find it on your DVD copy or YouTube. It's just a joy. It's about half an hour long, or maybe 40.
Yeah, it's a commercial. It's a commercial hour, I think. So yeah, it's like 45 or 48 or something like that. It's very watchable. Goes through the whole production. Yeah, good times.
Like I said, I've nothing really more to add. It's a passing grade all the way through. Some is down at the 70%. Some is at the 99%. I'm richer for having watched it.
That's the thing. I mean, I think probably the only thing that really puts me off rewatching it every year is that it's like it does fall into that in between space of sitting down to watch a movie or sitting down to watch an episode of a TV series. You know, I think stripping it across 2 nights is a way to go. Maybe even I don't know if I would get away with. I don't know if I would be awake enough to sit down and watch it on Christmas night these days. But I think, it could become a Boxing Day and a day after kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know if it's been repeated much by Sky. It's a wonderful piece of investment in art culture on their behalf.
Yeah, they definitely have. I don't think it's an annual thing for them. I know when some of the other Discworld adaptations were coming through, the Hogfather was being repeated to kind of drum up excitement, for Color of Magic and for Reason's Doom. So yeah, it's definitely been out there. It has a 7.4 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which I think is probably fair. I would say at least 7.5 for me. I feel like, on a good day, I would definitely round it up to an 8.
Definitely an 8. Yeah. And Fallon Jean should be commissioned to make another one.
Well, I mean, he has done other ones. You've seen one of them?
Right, fantastic. Is he on the Going Postal? I don't think.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's Going Postal. It's not Racing Steam is the other one. Yeah. So Going Postal is him as well. No, I think it's him too. I think it's. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. We get there. I haven't even read the book.
So man, we got a while to go before we get there.
Something to do. I think we'll just close up now. Thank you for joining us. We have a few plugs. I
just want to point out before we do that Vadam Jean did not direct Going Postal, so that's sad times. So we've watched all the Vadam Jean Discworld there is to watch. Sad times. But just want to say, shout out to him. Great job across the board. Thoroughly entertaining stuff. Well done to everybody involved in Hogfather.
I kind of twisted PJ's arm to do this live stream. I'm really glad I did. I needed a break because I've been doing some industry heavy stuff. My politics and media, current affairs commentary and comedy piece, Screen Cleaner, ran for 7 episodes over 7 consecutive weeks. You can find that on my channel at Andree Luke, which is still up there along with video essays on Press Gang, Star Wars, other stuff I've done, which is quite good.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, highly recommend all that stuff. I am not going to plug anything.
No.
I think it's time to look to the future. Let's look to 2026 and keep your ear to the ground. I will inform you when I have got more to share.
in the show notes, you can find a link to PJ's Country Rogues and the Devil's Own, and possibly help. Also to my channel and to my novels, Coastlines After Dark, which is hilarious. You absolutely should order it at another time. I'm going to
Seconded.
do a few thanks to our friends who have been supporting us. Ben and Elizabeth at Pratchett Podcast. I thought I'd like to thank a few of our friends who have been posting up over, that sounds dirty, over
A
at
little
Blue
bit.
Sky, but I haven't written their names. I thought I'd written their names down. You know who you are. You can find us on Blue Sky at Discord GNU, also on Facebook at Discord GNU. I'd like to thank a few of my patrons who have kept me in a bit of pocket money. Sonia, Andree, Richard, Huang, Andrew Bolster, Donal, Fallon, Alex C, Amanda Rodriguez, Shell, Dave Cromie, Matt Saunders, Andrew Gallagher, Alan Rowell, Benjamin Stone, Arsalan, Haider, Ali, and Ian Lawther. I think that's it. That's all the necessary stuff.
Shout out to everybody who commented on the live stream, especially SB and Wolverine.
Yes, really very much appreciated. Next month, I'm off on holiday to Scotland for a bit. Hello, Scotland.
Nice.
I won't be climbing any snowy mountains, though. I hope.
We'll be getting chased by wolves through
Unless
the
I
snow.
get snowed in, I do not plan on being chased by wolves.
Anything can happen.
Please do not chase me. We are reading Night Watch.
I already read it. Couldn't stop myself. So good. My favorite. It's my favorite. My favorite.
I've got to get through reading Night Watch and listening to my condensed audiobook version as well.
It's so good.
And being back here about this time next month, end of January.
Yeah. I don't even mind overhyping it. Usually I'd be worried about overhyping something like this. Impossible to overhype Night Watch. My favorite Discworld book out of the whole series. Because I think I might have filled all the gaps now. I don't know if I have any gaps left to fill. So I think I can confidently say it's up there. It's definitely, if not number one, in the top 3. Hope you like it. I'll be very upset if you don't, so no pressure. Let's talk about it after your holiday.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Have a December 32nd is just around the corner. Have a happy Hogs Watch from both of us.
Indeed.
Goodbye.
Bye. Yes. Damn, that's
Night Watch
he
is
knows.
brilliant.
Man, fair play for sticking around for the whole thing.
Yep. Okay. So I don't know what happens if I hit the button that says end stream. Does that just shut everything down?
Let's see what happens. You can go off air because we definitely went off air by accident earlier.
Yeah, thanks for staying with us. Again, unless I didn't say it before, but sincerely, man.
I'm just going to start.
Have a wee and have some more drink and stuff.
I'm just going to slide under this table. Bye. I can't stop now. This would be an excellent time to cut it if you can.
Yeah.
I can't move. Please.
Happy Hogs Watch.